Ever since the dawn of humankind, we've sought the origins of our life and its purpose. Some have chosen to look to science, religion, or philosophy for answers. Many have turned to the great masters such as Lao Tzu, the Buddha, and Jesus Christ for spiritual illumination. Still others have sought truth through their own direct experience. All of us are searching, knowingly or unknowingly, for enlightenment, truth, and harmony in our lives. This program, hosted by Dr. Gregory Penn, will help you aspire to a more fulfilling and rewarding life.
Every day we take a step, we understand. The closer that we get, we'll find in who we are. We choose between the left and right, the ups and downs, the darkness or the light. We're finding who we are.
Good morning and welcome to Aspire. Life is alive, and that's going to be our subject this morning as we seek to look at one of the most beautiful points of life, and that is its aliveness. So many of us have missed the aliveness of life. We look at life as only a physical experience. And when we limit life to our biology and the physical experiences that we see around us, we miss the point of living. So in this half hour, we're going to look at life from a very unusual point of view, as a spiritual experience. Come be with us and find the aliveness of life. It's been said that life is a great mystery, and certainly the way we live it is a tremendous mystery. Sometimes we live life as though it were a very casual experience, sometimes very passionate. Most of the time we go through it not knowing one thing about it, what it's all about, where we are going, the necessity of it, the beauty of it. And because we live our life from so many dimensions, we basically miss life. We miss the beauty of it, we miss the integrity of it. You know, to me, I listen to a lot of problems that people have as they go through their life. To me, the most sad and heartbreaking experience is not the personal tragedies that people seem to go through, in a lifetime that is. But the real tragedy to me is that we, you and I, we've missed our life. We've totally missed it. We have felt the necessity to try to fill up our life rather than really experience it for what it is. As I look at people move through their lifetime, they do one of two things, mostly this one. They either try to make a life for themselves, or if we are wise, we will let life become alive in us. We will let life bring to us meaning and significance. And there's a vast difference between letting life be what it is and letting it flow through us, and that of trying to make a life for ourselves. We've been taught to make a life for ourselves, to go out there into the world and to go out there and make a life for ourselves, and that translates into trying to fill our life up. Usually trying to fill it up with such things as family and children and money and possessions and jobs and friends. And you know, if you took that away from most people, they wouldn't have a life. They wouldn't think there was anything involved in their daily living. They're too busy out there making a life for themselves. They're busy trying to get things, to hold on to things, to make life meaningful. I think we have to question it sometimes. If everything that you have right now, for some reason in your life, was taken away from you, would you say that your life was gone? That you didn't have a life anymore? If I can take, or life can take, anything away from you and diminish your life, then you don't really have life itself. Because life is alive. It's a happening experience. It's happening at many levels, but you and I are missing it because we are too busy trying to manipulate life rather than to experience it from its spontaneity and from its love. Now, there's a difference. That is the person who tries to make a life. What about the person who lets life? This is a different kind of individual. They live on the razor's edge of tremendous understanding, the razor's edge of great spontaneity. This is the kind of person who is interested not in trying to fill their life, but in trying to understand their life. They're not trying to make a life, they are seeking to be aware of their life. And what a beautiful experience that can be for all of us. Most of us have had our fill of life. We've had all the things that we said would make us happy and all the things that we wanted. And now maybe it's time for us to look within. I would like to offer you some ways to let life flow through you. After all, if we let life flow through us, don't you think that the better things, the things that we've always wanted, the things that we need would be added unto us? And the funny thing about that little thing is this, that once we let life flow to us, the things that we once thought that we couldn't live without, the things that we thought were so important, now we begin to see in their proper perspective, and they're not so important anymore. Let me give you some insight. The first thing on letting life flow through us, there are 3 treasures that we need to gain inside of ourselves. Gain all of the world, but don't gain these 3 treasures, and you will find your life slipping away from you. The first treasure is compassion. Seek compassion in you, to develop it. Compassion is the ability to see all things the way they are without the need to criticize them, without the need to look at them and feel sorry for people in situations that they have made for themselves, maybe a loved one who is ill or a loved one going through a troubled time. Compassion is the ability to see why they're moving through that experience, not to feel sorry for them, but to understand why, and maybe to be able to help in very loving ways. Compassion is the ability to see beyond a person's actions, and instead of condemning them for what they've done, to understand it's a part of their path. Compassion. The next thing you will always need is a tremendous amount of forgiveness. Life is a living experience, and we will make mistakes in that experience. All of us make mistakes. You make them, I make them, the world makes them. It's a part of the process. We shouldn't be ashamed of our mistakes. Most people live in tremendous regret of their life. Tremendous regret. Regret for the things that they've done and regret for the things that they weren't able to do. What a waste to live our life in such regret. It wasn't meant to be lived in that way. That's why we need forgiveness. Forgiveness is the ability to see what we've done and to totally let it go. We have filled our life up with so much unhappiness in the form of the guilt of the things that we've done, the guilt for the things that we haven't done, the regrets of the things that we wish we'd done, that we haven't got anything left for ourselves. At the end of a lifetime, what is it but just one big guilt trip? Forgiveness is so necessary. So practice that attitude. Forgive, let go. You'll find that the burden of life is eased greatly the more you let go of the things that have not served you. Another thing in that is love. How do you explain love? It's really not something that should be defined. Love is an openness to life, to see life as it is, to be sensitive to it. And that's what life is. It's a very sensitive experience. Even at the moment of death, life is occurring. Even the moment we're shedding our body, a new life is beginning. We have to begin to understand that life is eternal. It is not stagnated to the qualities that you and I tend to stagnate it to, which is objects and possessions and things. The last attitude is a difficult one. I have to admit, it's the one that gives me the most trouble. And that is to let life love us. To let life love us. We don't do this very well, a lot of us. We feel like we must always be giving, but not necessarily receiving. Life wants to love you. It wants to give to you. It wants to offer to you the riches of itself. But we repel it. We get a hard and cynical attitude about our life, very cynical. We begin to judge life according to the cruelty that we've seen in other people. We tend to look at life from our animosity. We tend to look at life from our fears. And when we do that, of course, we create great barriers. Life can't love us. Life can't give to us. Let life give to you. It wants to give to you. It wants to give to you understanding. It wants to give you the fruits. Yes, even prosperity. It wants to give you the compassion that you want. It's always a giving experience. Never block off the ability that life has to give to you. Be open to it. And in being open to it, here's something else that's going to happen. You'll be a better giver. There is a law of giving and receiving in this life, and it is simply this, that as I give of myself, and the quality from which I give will be the exact quality that I receive. Much of our life is missed entirely because we're busy hoarding life, holding back from life, trying to keep life from happening. It's a changing, fluid experience. Ours is not to resist it, but to flow with it, to let it happen. It takes great courage to let life happen. It happens because we're open to it from our heart, never from our mind. Practice the things I've given to you. Be sensitive to life. Work with compassion and forgiveness and love. Let life bless you by receiving from life. Let life love you by opening up to it. Life does not have to be such a great mystery. We've created great mysteries in our life by resisting it. Life doesn't need to be filled with the things that we think we should have or want or desire. Life is happening just as it should. It has its own destiny, its own rendezvous with you and with me. The more open we become to life, the more fearless we will become, the more life will have meaning. Life is living. Life is happening to you and to me right now. Let's not blow it. Let's not miss this life experience. It's an experience of compassion, of wisdom. It's a spiritual experience that transcends all earthly existence. Well, because we get so much mail, and many of you enjoy this segment where we do answer some of the mail, I thought I would answer 4 questions that were given to us on just random ideas about life. The first one comes from a person in San Diego. He writes to me, he says, Greg, I'm caught in a dilemma. I enjoy your teachings of the Buddha and Jesus, and your upcoming series on the Tao sounds very exciting to me, but I come from a traditional background. My family thinks I'm crazy for being interested in all of this. Do you think I should go to your classes and keep watching Aspire? I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and yet I feel the need of this experience in my own life. What to do? Well, you know, we always have a choice here. This person obviously is finding that something's clicking inside. You know, you can't be a traditional person and follow a Jesus, a Buddha, or a Lao Tzu. It's impossible. They were not traditional people. It always makes me laugh when I hear people talk about Christianity in such conservative terms and making Jesus seem so conservative. He was not a conservative person. He wasn't crucified because he was conservative. He was a rebel. And yet, his rebel attitude and the rebellious attitude that he showed was not towards government, but towards the idea of our conservative thoughts, our conservative attitudes. I can't tell you to watch Aspire or to come to my classes or even to the center. I don't think we're for everybody. We're for the individual who is finding themselves more deeply and more profoundly, and this program is dedicated to that. If you're going to follow, though, the way of the Christ or the Buddha or any of the great spiritual masters, you can't be conservative. It's impossible. The teachings are not conservative. Conservatism holds us back, restrains us, keeps us from changing and growing. The very nature of the Christ is to change and to grow. The very nature of Buddha's teachings were to change and to grow. So you're really in a dilemma. If you're there only to please your parents or your family and you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, then stay where you are. No spiritual growth can occur, but at least you'll stay where you are and nobody will be hurt except one person, you. You have to decide how important this is. Isn't it interesting that people who are conservative and religious can get hurt so easily, that they are so frail that they can't take on a new idea and a new concept that rattles and shakes them from their past? Whether or not you study this now or you study it later is really not important. The real issue is, are you willing to break your conservatism and the fear that locks you into your family, into saying, I don't want to hurt them, I'll stay with them at the sacrifice of my own spiritual interest and maybe even curiosity? That's a decision only you can make. Whatever decision you make, it will be a good one. It will be the one that's appropriate for you. We'll always be here. There'll always be someone teaching these things. And like I say, it's not important whether you study it now, but if you break your traditions, that is the important thing. Next question. This one comes from El Cajon. How does one live in the world but not of the world? I've heard you talk about this so often on your radio program. What did Jesus mean by many are called but few are chosen? We live in a world. That is obvious. The problem with us is that we misinterpret the world. To live in the world but not of the world is really very simple. Don't take what you see literally. This world is not meant to be taken literally. It's an illusion, all of it. It's a vibratory illusion. If we look at it as though it were concrete, absolute, unchanging, we miss the point of life. Nothing in life is unchanging. Everything is moving. The tide coming in wears away at the rock, at the sand. The ocean shifts tide and dimensions and color. Everything shifts and changes. The sky changes, you change. Be willing, be open to change. What did Jesus mean by many are called but few have chosen? Just exactly your question. You know, everybody's called to understand the nature of love. Everybody's called to find the nature and the spirit of life. We're all called to that. The curious thing about us is that we don't heed the call. Very few of us choose to take that call and go seriously with it. A spiritual person is very different from a religious person. Religious people are ground and determined and willful to make sure that their viewpoints and their thoughts and their attitudes are firmly entrenched and implanted in people's minds. They have a need to always be right. There's a very, very limited scope of forgiveness, of compassion, or tolerance. For the few people that choose to walk the spiritual path, they are considered to be more open, but they look frivolous on the outside, maybe even a little wishy-washy, because they're open and susceptible to the moment. They live in the now. There's a spontaneity to them, a candor to them that is most unique. We're all called to know the spirit of life. But the sad part is that very few of us ever choose to take that call and to move with it. Maybe this is your lifetime. Maybe this is the time that you will work with love and compassion, that you will choose to see the spirit of life rather than the literal aspect of life. That is what it means to be called. Very few of us ever choose to heed that call. It's a personal one, and it comes from within ourselves. Third question. Again, this one comes from El Cajon. We must have a lot of people out there watching. Is this all there is to life? And that's the end of the question. Is this all there is to life? Well, what is that? What is there all to life but you? You're all there is to life. It's not happening out here, it's happening inside of us. Life is occurring all over. We're the ones that either see it and interpret it, that means we miss it, or we don't allow ourselves to see it and interpret it from a physical point of view, and we begin to see it just for what it is, as a dynamic spiritual experience of our heart. The person who is wise in their soul doesn't look at life and try to interpret it. They don't try to make it happen. They let it happen through them. Is this all there is to life? This is life, my dear friend, and it's occurring through you. And if your life doesn't seem like it's any more than what it is, it's because you're too busy interpreting it. You're too busy manipulating it. Maybe too busy being bored with it. Find yourself, and you'll find life. You'll find it to be a vast, unusual experience because it's eternal. It never ends. It never had a beginning, and it never will end. Your body may end, but you won't. The last question comes from La Jolla. It's a woman who says, I want success in my life. I want to be fruitful. Where do I begin? People who are obsessed with success are very unhappy people. Sometimes they get their success. I once had a teacher say to me, and it's a very good quote, be careful what you want or what you pray for, you just might get it. A lot of us think that success will be very important to us. And in the overall point of view, it isn't. I know a lot of very successful people, and they are very unsuccessful when it comes to their own selves. We can be monetarily successful and yet not very happy with us. And what is the greatest failure in life, if we were to use a term, failure, than that of not succeeding in knowing who we are, what we are? Don't be worried about success. To be fruitful, you already are fruitful. You have yet to see the fruit in your life. You were not created inferior. Do you realize how much of a block we have created in our life? It makes it impossible for life to flow through us. We're too busy rejecting it. We reject it so much it's impossible for us to be fruitful. We don't want to give to it, we don't want to receive it. Some people hate it, some people love it. Look, you're a very fruitful person. You have the ability for great compassion and love. You were made out of that compassion and love. You are the essence of possibility. Enter into your possibilities. Don't reject them because you don't see them with your eye, or your past, or your hopes for the future. The greatest fruit is happening to us right now. The fields are already white to the harvest. Your happiness is not happening tomorrow, and it wasn't yesterday. You will see your fruits, your happiness, your potentials when you enter into the now. Right now it's happening. Be alert, be meditative, and be silent, and then you will see the fruitfulness of your life. It will come in many forms. The fruitfulness of loving, of being loved, of sharing, of giving, of growing, of loving, and of understanding. Well, I hope you enjoyed our program, that life is alive, and it truly is alive. But we miss so much of our life, and it's such a tragedy to miss so much of it. We miss it because basically we are more concerned about what we get than what life is. And the great tragedy of life is to mistake what it is that we get as being the great treasure of life, rather than understanding that the real treasure in life is understanding exactly what it is. When we miss life because we misinterpret the value of it due to getting ourselves caught up in sensual things, physical things, we commit one of the biggest acts of sin in our life. Sin is not the things that you and I do that are wrong, that are a mistake, because everybody makes mistakes. It's a part of life to make mistakes. You have the right to make as many mistakes as are necessary to find the life that lives within you. You will never be condemned for that. The real sin in life is misinterpreting it. The real sin in life is holding yourself to resentment and hostility, of not letting go of your past and the errors that are there, where you live in the doldrum of your anger and your frustration and your guilt. Let all those things go. God forgives you. God forgives all of us. That's never the point. The point is, will you and I accept the forgiveness that God gives to us? That is the key to finding the life that lives within you, to living life to its fullest. It's not a matter of what you do or how much you get, but in discovering the secret of your heart. That's what life is all about. Thanks for being with us. Have a beautiful weekend. Live it to the fullest.
Every day we take a step, we understand. The closer that we get, we're finding who we are.
We choose between the left and right, the ups and downs, the darkness or